Shocking exchange. Reaction to an undercover probe of the harvesting of body parts from aborted babies. Addressing critics. The president attempts to counter criticism of the nuclear deal with Iran. The Great Escape. We take you inside the elaborately planned tunnel used to spring drug lord El Chapo. And a new spin on old vinyl, creating functional works of art using trashed records. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, July 15th, 2015. Good evening from Washington. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. A pro-life group claims its undercover video shows Planned Parenthood affiliates harvest and sell body parts of aborted babies. Today, members of Congress call for an investigation, and Jason Calvi has the story.
Brian, Speaker Boehner is calling for Congress to investigate if Planned Parenthood is selling organs. It comes one day after the release of that video. It's gone viral with over 1 million hits. But I must warn you, the content is disturbing.
Pro-lifers rally at the Capitol today. A call echoed by presidential contender Ted Cruz.
If you remain silent, if you support, as so many congressional Democrats do, the continued taxpayer funding of Planned Parenthood, then you are complicit in this barbaric practice.
He's speaking of this video featuring Planned Parenthood Federation of America's Senior Director of Medical Services.
I'd say a lot of people want liver.
Pro-life activists posed as potential buyers of fetal tissues.
The $30 to $100 price, that's per specimen that we're talking about, right? Yeah.
The explosive video has sparked a fierce debate. Planned Parenthood says they help women donate fetal organs for scientific research, and the video was heavily edited. But the group behind the video says they posted the complete unedited version online.
We had a 3-hour-long conversation that we needed to condense into something smaller. So there's a lot of other things in the full footage that really don't help Planned Parenthood's case.
Daleiden investigated Planned Parenthood for nearly 3 years.
We attended multiple top-level Planned Parenthood and abortion industry meetings. We networked and had business lunch meetings with multiple top-level Planned Parenthood executives.
His work is now a rallying point for pro-life advocates who are shocked by the video.
It's just terrible how they're using these women to profit from their dead children.
Selling human fetal organs is against the law, but donating tissue is allowed if the mother consents. 2 House committees are already investigating: Energy and Commerce and the Judiciary Committee. Brian?
Thank you, Jason. And we will talk more about that undercover video with David Daleiden from the Center for Medical Progress tomorrow night. Lila Rose, president of Live Action, joining us. So, Lila, Planned Parenthood says these harvested parts are donated, which is legal. What's the issue?
They're not donated, they're sold, Brian. And Planned Parenthood does businesses with for-profits like STEM Express in California, which is actually set up as a for-profit. They thought they were doing with a LLC, which is for-profit in the state of California. They're talking not about donations, but transactions of $30 to $100 per piece, and that's on the low end. This is money that they're making, and they're talking about legitimizing what they're doing further amongst other clinics and affiliates in order to spread the practice.
And what about these parents who are consenting to this process?
Well, first of all, keep in mind, we're talking about parents and children. Children that are being torn apart, limb from limb, dismembered in utero, or moved around and manipulated in utero. And the abortionist in the video, the Planned Parenthood director, actually talks about how she has to manipulate the child to get a good liver intact, or a lung, or a heart. And that in and of itself is illegal, because even if a woman who's in the horrible situation of choosing to have an abortion is going in there and saying, I'm going to write off my rights, she's not giving them the permission to manipulate the abortion procedure so that they have a better product at the end to sell a piece of that child that they just killed.
And that conversation is so shocking. Does Planned Parenthood profit from this?
Absolutely. I mean, keep in mind that there are over 320,000 abortions every year. done by Planned Parenthood, if they can just get 10% of those abortions, that they can sell parts from that, we're talking about millions of dollars. There's an industry, and all sides of it the government is funding. They fund Planned Parenthood over $500 million a year. They fund the research industry that is purchasing these parts, and there's funding Planned Parenthood's ability to make money off of the sale of the abortion and then to make money off of the sale of the parts of that child that they just killed.
We're hearing criticism of this undercover strategy. Your live action has led the way in undercover investigations of the abortion industry. Why go undercover?
Well, I mean, if you call Planned Parenthood's PR hotline or you look up their 990, their public documents, they're not going to admit to what they're doing. The sexual abuse cover-up of minors, the selling and trafficking of the parts of children that they've killed. They're not going to admit to that. It's necessary to go in there, to get the footage, and to release it to the public because people deserve to know. Our children deserve to have their stories told. Each one of these children dismembered, they deserve their story told, and that's what this footage is doing.
It's a shocking story, but it's an effective way to tell it. And finally, tell us about the petition to defund Planned Parenthood.
Of course. This is very exciting, Brian, because we're seeing, again, more and more momentum around the call to get taxpayer funding out of the abortion industry. We spend over $1.4 million a day as taxpayers. We have a petition up at PlannedParenthoodExposed.com. It's at over 91,000. We need to get it to 100,000, and we're taking it to Congress. Investigating the abortion industry, like Congress has pledged to do today, is great, but we need to completely shut down the funding of the abortion industry so that taxpayers are no longer forced to support this barbaric activity.
Lila Rose with Live Action. Thanks for being with us. And pro-life advocate Abby Johnson, who left Planned Parenthood, echoes calls for congressional action on the trafficking of infant organs.
The business of fetal tissue harvesting is gruesome and it's heinous. Unfortunately, it is legal. We need to close some of these loopholes that allow for fetal tissue harvesting in the first place.
We'll have Catherine Zeltner's complete interview with Abby Johnson tomorrow evening. Johnson tells us how people working in the abortion industry can get out like she did. Some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. President Obama vigorously defends the nuclear deal with Iran. Today, he cast the agreement as the only way to avoid war with Iran and prevent a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. Wyatt Goolsby reports from the White House tonight.
Brian, the president today refuting nearly every potential criticism to this nuclear agreement. His main argument is simple. No one wants Iran to possess a nuclear weapon, and he says this deal makes sure that doesn't happen. President Obama making his sales pitch from the East Room today, explaining why Congress and U.S. allies should accept the agreement.
As a consequence of this agreement, Iran has to drastically reduce its stockpiles of uranium, is cut off from plutonium. The Fordow facility that is underground is converted, that we have an unprecedented inspections regime.
Obama telling the press the deal puts the U.S. in a better position to know exactly what's going on inside Iran.
We don't have diplomatic leverage to eliminate every vestige of a peaceful nuclear program in Iran. What we do have the leverage to do is to make sure they don't have a weapon. That's exactly what we've done.
Today's press conference is the latest move in a White House strategy. Flood the debate zone with reasons why the deal is a good one. His main pitch is to Congress, who has 60 days to review the plan. Despite his media campaign, the president still has lots of critics.
If, in fact, it's as bad a deal as I think it is at this moment, we'll do everything we can to stop it.
You've created a nuclear arms race in the Mideast. You put Israel at risk, and you put us at risk.
As the debate continues in Washington, the U.S. bishops are backing the agreement. Bishop Oscar Cantu is sending a letter to lawmakers urging them to vote yes on the deal. In it, he says, "We encourage Congress to support these efforts to build bridges that foster peace and greater understanding." In addition to the president's efforts, the vice president, Joe Biden, spent a good portion of the day talking with House Democrats to try to garner their support for the deal. But in the meantime, Israel, the United States' closest ally in the region, is blasting the Obama administration, saying that they're providing sanctioned relief to Iran, who is funding terrorist groups. Brian?
Wyatt Goolsby at the White House. Thank you, Wyatt. With Greece's parliament now poised to vote on reforms for a third financial bailout, governing party members slammed the agreement with European creditors. A majority of the left-wing party signed a statement today calling the deal a coup by European leaders. Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras says that he does not believe in the new measures, but he will see them through.
I will not run away from my responsibilities, because what is important right now is to ensure the safety of the country and of the working classes so that they do not suffer an economic catastrophe.
The bailout agreed to Monday is worth close to $96 billion, but it's contingent on much harsher terms than those terms that Greek voters have already rejected. Will U.S. interest rates rise this year? Fed Chair Janet Yellen sees a number of encouraging signs that the economy is reviving after a brutal winter.
The economy is recovering. I'm pleased by its progress. As I indicated, my colleagues and I think if the economy progresses as we expect, we probably will begin to raise interest rates sometime this year, and that takes us toward the long term.
Yellen says there are still problems with the labor market, including slow wage growth. Surveillance video released by Mexico's government shows the moment notorious drug lord Wyatt Goolsby escaped from prison. In this grainy black and white footage, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman can be seen staring into the space behind the shower partition in his cell. We now know the entrance to his escape tunnel was hidden there. He paces the length of his cell several times, peers into the hole again, and for a moment seems to disappear. But he comes back up, walks to his bed, and appears to put on his shoes. Finally, he strides back to the hole, looks down, and lowers himself in. For a moment, you see his shadow, then he is gone. Officials also released video footage of El Chapo's cell and the tunnel itself. Security experts point out that his drug cartel uses tunnels for drug smuggling.
He is an expert at tunnel construction because he's built many that tunnel under the U.S.-Mexico border to bring drugs into the United States.
Inside the tunnel, the homemade excavating equipment used to clear the path reveals the sophisticated construction plan.
They had blueprints. The engineers had blueprints to the facility, to the prison. They were able to engineer it to come right up for him to get out.
And here in the U.S., El Chapo is once again declared public enemy number one.
Chapo's wanted in something like 7 U.S. judicial districts. He's looking at life without parole, possibly the death sentence for murders committed in connection with drug trafficking.
What an amazing look at yet another brazen prison escape. And we have our first close-up look at the planet Pluto. NASA's New Horizons spacecraft is sending signals from the icy planet some 3 billion miles away. The spacecraft did a flyby yesterday, but it took 13 hours for confirmation to reach scientists back here on Earth. The U.S. is now the only nation on Earth to visit every planet in our solar system. Coming up, are prison sentences too harsh for drug offenders? President Obama thinks so. You'll hear what he's proposing. And accusations that the hero of Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird is racist. Christ is both the way and the door. Christ is the staircase and the vehicle. That's an excerpt from St. Bonaventure's writings used in today's Liturgy of the Hours. We celebrate this 13th century Franciscan scholar who is a doctor of the church on this Wednesday, the 15th of July. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick. Well, tomorrow, President Obama becomes the first sitting president to visit a federal prison. He wants lawmakers to reduce harsh sentences, especially for nonviolent drug offenders. The president attended an NAACP rally Tuesday in Philadelphia, talking about the harsh reality prisoners face trying to re-enter the real world.
Let's follow the growing number of our states and cities and private companies who've decided to ban the box on job applications so that former prisoners who have done their time and are now trying to get straight with society have a decent shot in a job interview. And if folks have served their time and they've re-entered society, they should be able to vote.
The president commuted the prison sentences of nearly 4 dozen nonviolent drug offenders earlier this week. It's great to have Gloria Purvis back with us. Gloria chairs the Black Catholics United for Life. Gloria, does the president's plan make sense to you?
Well, I think it's intuitive, but it's incomplete. What the president talked about was reforms in the community, reforms in the courtroom, and reforms in the cell block, all with the idea of reducing the need for incarceration and also with the idea that eventually these people need to come out and be reintegrated into society. So in terms of reforms in the community, the president talked about making more investments into pre-kindergarten and ensuring jobs for teenagers during the summer. Basically, he's talking about occupying the free time of children.
How does the family play into this?
Well, with those examples, really, it's the state's trying to take on the role of mother and father. They're trying to be there in place of a mother and father because they understand that the idea of a mother and a father with their children is not what's valued in our country right now, so it seems, especially in light of the Supreme Court decision. And because we know children do best in homes with their mothers and fathers, the state recognizes that absence and thinks it can fill those shoes. I don't think it can.
So we as Catholics are called to help repair society. How should we respond to this idea, do you think?
Well, the three basics, prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. I say prayer because we know that drives out demons, as Jesus said in the scriptures, prayer and fasting and almsgiving. So those are the three prescriptions I think we need, because what happens in the temporal is affected by what happens in the spiritual. Now, if we want to repair our society, we need to be involved with our children and do things like almsgiving could be not just dropping off clothes at a diaper bank, but maybe volunteering to be the coach of the CYO team, or story time reading to your children, giving of yourself to another. And we need to really think about those things because that's the only prescription for the brokenness that's in our society.
The president made his remarks before the NAACP. Is that significant? Is he singling out the black community here?
I think he's signaling out the black and the Latino community because according to the information that we have in the federal records on prisons, Latino men and black men are more likely to be incarcerated. So he's speaking to an audience that he feels would be directly impacted by these reforms. I do wish the president had spoken a little bit more about personal changes that we need to make in our community, like our values around family. Not that we have anything different from the larger society, but that we all need a wholesale reevaluation of this culture.
Well, where does that come from, though? People want the government to do this, and as you said, it's not a job of the government.
It's not a job of the government, but I don't think people feel comfortable now talking about family values. We aren't accustomed to challenging what we see on movies and television that basically glamorize the use of drugs and living a violent lifestyle to achieve your wealth. That's considered entertainment instead of destructive values that they're putting in front of us. So those are the things that people are uncomfortable talking about, but we know we do it in church and we do it within our families, and more importantly, we try to model the values that we hold as Catholics.
Gloria Purvis, we thank you for being with us and look forward to having you back.
Me too. Thanks, Brian.
Well, the actress who played Scout in the film adaptation of the classic To Kill a Mockingbird defends Harper Lee's latest book. Go Set a Watchman went on sale yesterday. Initial reviews and some reports called the beloved Atticus Finch character a racist in this latest depiction. Finch has been touted as a hero in literature for decades. At a reading last night, actress Mary Badham, who played Finch's daughter in the film, gave her take.
What you have to do is you have to put your mindset in that time period, okay? And you have to understand what we lived through. I, being from Alabama, can testify to this about the way you presented at home and the way you may have to present in public.
Go Set a Watchman was the first draft of the Pulitzer Prize winning To Kill a Mockingbird. Author Harper Lee is now 89 years old and is mostly deaf and blind. Up next, you're going to love what artists are creating with those old vinyl record albums. And this cute baby penguin is part of an effort to help a dwindling species survive. Now is the time for a change in mindset and to stop pretending that our actions do not affect those who suffer from hunger. A tweet from Pope Francis on this 9th anniversary of the launch of Twitter. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick. Joining us from Rome, Bishop Marcelo Sanchez Sorondo, Chancellor of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. It's hosting a conference next week urging world leaders to fight climate change and human slavery. Your Excellency, can you draw the connection for us between climate change and human slavery or human trafficking?
I think that it's a very clear connection, we can say, of the point of view phenomenological, because both are real new emergencies in the global war. And this is a clear connection. But they are a more deeply connection. And this was proposed by the Patriarch of Constantinople, Bartholomew, when he came here with the other leader religious to speak about the problem of the new form of slaves. And he say he is very concerned in relation with the problem of climate change. And he say the climate change that is induced by the human being, because use this in his activity, this fuel material, provoke poverty. And the poverty is the condition for all forms of the new form of slaves, because if you are in a situation that cannot eat, you accept it, for example, all forms of labor, and also forced labor, and also a labor that is not a human labor.
What is the goal of the conference next week to be held in the building directly behind you there?
Well, the goal is just that the mayors of the more important cities, and or more important by tradition or by history, or important by significance, for example, Lampedusa, the city of Lampedusa, that is for the European countries the brick of the Mediterranean Sea, be aware about these both emergencies and communicate us the best practice that we can do to avoid this, try to together to obtain a conclusion that could be a new commitment in favor of the populations and the common good.
Bishop Marcelo Sanchez Sorondo, thank you for joining us from Rome, and we'll be covering that council next week.
Thank you very much. I am very happy you're present here.
And artists are rescuing vinyl records from the trash heap to create functional works of art and a greener environment. Catherine Zeltner introduces us to a new spin on old records.
Vinyl records are making a comeback.
This is raw materials.
Well, sort of. Instead of RPMs, vinyl is spinning into ART.
The thick vinyl we use for clocks and wall art and things that don't need to be manipulated. And for the thinner vinyl we use for laser cutting and bracelet making.
Artists are rescuing vinyl records from the trash to create not only functional works of art, but a greener environment.
It is made of polyvinyl chloride, which is a particular problem when it ends up in landfills. It doesn't biodegrade. It can stay in a landfill for hundreds, if not 1,000 years. It can contaminate groundwater should it break apart.
Patrick Cherko, owner of a Brooklyn-based company, says the new groove of vinyl appeals to an audiophile's love of nostalgia and to a millennial's love of music.
This product you either have on your arm or in your pocket or on your wall has already had dozens of people sitting around it and slowing down and enjoying it in a whole nother pastime. I'm just giving that same music lover another way to enjoy the music.
Cherko says not all records make the cut.
If I get a Beatles album, that's going home to my wife. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go and cut a Beatles, unless it's really bad and kids scratched it out.
In that case, even an icon will rock round the clock. Catherine Zeltner, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Catherine. The Dallas Zoo unveils its newest addition, a cute baby penguin named Marina. The African black-footed penguin took to the water well. And the zoo says Marina is part of an African penguin species survival plan. Birds of this type have suffered a 90% decline in population since the early 1900s. The Dallas Zoo says fewer than 50,000 African penguins remain in the wild. Until tomorrow, we encourage you to like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter and watch again on EWTN's YouTube page. We hope you do that. For our EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. Good night and God bless.